算是一个经济学家 ，not an economist。一般来讲，我什么社论我都不写 ，I'm not an economist。我就是国家前总理。我上了大学的时候，我读什么书呢？我学了古代汉语、现代汉语、中国历史、中国哲学、中国文学而已。So I have no qualifications to speak to you at all on this question, other than experience. Let me make a few observations, and I really enjoyed all the presentations. And it's great that we are in a university environment where we can have a free and open exchange of different perspectives and different evaluations of data. That is the heart of university life. So the LSE should be proud of hosting such an event as this. First question that I'll take on is this new leadership in China reformist on the economy or not? I believe they are. I disagree with the comments made by the first speaker. Let me tell you my reasons why. There's no point making an assertion unless you can produce something which vaguely approximates evidence. The first is, if you look at the Standing Committee 7, I disagree with the analysis of 5 not being reformist. I know 4 of them personally, Xi Jinping, Li Keqiang, Zhang Gaoli and Wang Qishan. These guys on the economy have a very similar script, and it is a script which says China has no alternative but to begin the next phase of reform, as demonstrated and articulated in the contents of the 12th five-year plan, the transformation of the growth model. The second point I'd make is, well, you might say, why should you believe what I have concluded based on my knowledge of these individuals? Good question. But if you look at the external evidence since Xi Jinping has become Dang Zong Shuji and the Jinwei, it's this. First provincial visit.
Sorry about that.
大家肯定不喜欢我说的话。I've experienced many protests in life, but that's unique. There is a very key point when a new leader is elected in China as to what they do with their time. When they decide to go and visit outside Beijing, having been elected, where they go has a particular significance. Where did Xi Jinping go? He went to Shenzhen. Why did he go to Shenzhen? The whole policy of reform and opening, as you know, began with the Jingji Techu back in the early 1980s. And it began specifically in Shenzhen through the combined work of Deng Xiaoping and Xi Jinping's father, Xi Jinping. Okay? This was a symbolic step. When he was there, he further said, what China needs is more reform. He was specifically echoing Deng Xiaoping's Nanxun in 1992, when 3 years after Tiananmen, Deng Xiaoping at the age of 87 went south on the Nanxun and said, China needs to go faster on reform. So there's 2 symbolisms there from Xi Jinping. One, I'm re-emphasizing the importance of reform and opening. And 2, in case you've missed the message, I am saying that Deng Xiaoping's road was absolutely correct and we now need to go to the next phase. And if you missed all of that, here I'm going to put a wreath of flowers at Deng Xiaoping's statue. Now, even 我们大鼻子老外都知道的说很大的重要性. Even big-nosed foreigners like us understand something important is going on when he does that sort of thing. So that is a further evidence I'd put forward as to why this leadership is reformist. The third is this. The leadership knows, as was said before, that the growth model, the old growth model, has a time expiry limit on it. These are very intelligent people. The research advisory units which service the party and the government and the private think tanks have analysed where the old growth model has gone. low wage levels, labour-intense manufacturing for export, high levels of investment, low levels of consumption. It's served China phenomenally well for 35 years. And it's progressively retreated from Yanhai to the middle of the country, and it's slowly heading west until you run out of places for it to be. Therefore, they know the new growth model has to be implemented because they need to sustain growth at a given level in order to provide rising living standards and sufficient jobs to maintain the legitimacy of the party and the government. That's my third reason why I think they are reformist. My fourth point is that, this is where I agree with the negative commentary provided, is it Gary? Gordon. In his first speech, in his first presentation, which was, I agree with him entirely. The internal commentary in Beijing now does refer to 10 wasted years of reform. They talk about this period of Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao as 10 wasted years. I offer no view as to whether that is accurate or not, but I do reflect a view commonly in circulation in policy and political elites within Beijing that that is the case. And if you go to substantive elements of economic reform in that 10-year period, it's difficult to quantify. The two architects of China's economic reform program have been one, Deng Xiaoping, and two, Zhu Rongji. But Zhu Rongji has been retired for quite a while now. Therefore, they know that they have to continue the reform program as articulated in the 12th five-year plan if they're going to produce the economic dividends they need. Second last point. So what is going to happen in terms of the content of this reform program? Well, again, I agree with Gordon on this. There has been quite formidable flight of private capital out of China. Everybody knows that, outside the country and inside the country. And there's a specific reason for that, is that private firms in particular felt correctly that they were being squeezed out of the market for two specific reasons. One, non-competitive supply of price for financial capital for their firms to expand because of differential lending regimes between state-owned banks and SOEs on the one hand and the financial sector to private firms on the other. And the second is simply the volume of SOE activity in crowding out the market for other competitors. The Chinese government knows that. Therefore, the first reform I believe that you will see, based on my discussions in Beijing, will be financial sector reforms to close the gap and to eliminate the gap in terms of the price of capital provided to all firms in the economy, state or non-state. The second one I think they will do, and this is a bigger call, will be to find some lower level SOEs and privatise them. This will be enormously controversial in China. I'm not talking about the really big ones, I'm talking about those at the modest end of the spectrum, because they want to send a message to the private entrepreneurs within the economy that there will be space in the market for them. Thirdly, I think you're also likely to see a incremental change to currency reform in China, which is going to be somewhat larger than people anticipate in terms of how wide and how fast the value of the yuan will move in relation to the US dollar. These are big calls by me, and I can easily be proven wrong on any of them. But I make them based on discussions that I've had with a bunch of people in China. My last point is this, and this is where I think Gordon again was partly right, but primarily wrong. And that is this. He said that the nature of the political system itself prevents this next phase of reform from occurring. I understand the logic of that proposition. This audience is intelligent enough to know the logic of the proposition as well. However, if you look for a very interesting recent example of a major domestic political controversy in China, only a few weeks ago, involving Guangzhou Zhoumo, the Guangzhou weekend, the Southern Weekend magazine or newspaper. This is a very interesting case. No one actually cleanly wins out of this case, but it was not concluded in a manner which is a crackdown on press freedom. It is a much more textured result than that. Therefore, to conclude that political repression will be the name of the day in terms of the posture of this new regime, thereby sending bad messages to economic participants, is not necessarily going to be the case. I do not believe that there is a plan to democratise China, small d or capital D. That's wrong. What you said in terms of the internal party version of democracy is the direction in which they will go. With 83 million people in the Chinese Communist Party, which would make the Chinese Communist Party the biggest country in Europe, think about it, that's a lot of people in the party. Having contestable internal elections is no small step. I think the pressure for further steps will be large if I read my Weibo account every day. Then the final point I would make is this, and that is the whole question of systemic collapse, and going back to the, shall I say, the overarching thesis which Gordon put forward. I am old enough and ugly enough to have seen so many reports about China's impending collapse for political, economic or internal division reasons over the last 30 years to now be very sceptical about the next one that I read. It is, I think, a false assumption on the part of the collective West or anyone in the United States to assume that China has got to an internal tipping point whereby it will all simply fall apart. The Chinese leadership, in my experience, despite all the internal problems, and they are massive, are enormously intelligent, they analyse things carefully, and they take steps in a highly considered fashion. Therefore, I'm not persuaded that we're about to see any final systemic collapse. That's my overall view. I believe there are still large problems which they face, of course, but one cautionary note about what I've described as some of the economic triumphalism I heard from one of the Chinese participants up here before as well. China economy good, saving the world economy, American economy bad, full of debt, fiscal cliff yet to be resolved, going down the tube, Europe gone, basket case. That's the crude summary, but I think I got it right. You know something? We needed some objectivity about this. This is a global economy. We need every part of the economy to be performing. And objectively, having just come from Davos, and spent many days in the last week with global CEOs from the world's top 100 companies. The mood in terms of the US economy recovery, in terms of order books for large firms, is trending up. Secondly, in Europe, minus Britain, it is also turning the corner. China is strong and good. We should celebrate all those three facts, not just one of them. Thank you very much.